The May 31st special meeting of the Mentor Board of Education is called to order. Please call the roll.
Ms. Iapolo.
Here.
Ms. Jesslin.
Present.
Ms. Marchaza.
Present.
Ms. Payne.
Here.
Ms. Cook.
Here. Thank you. If you're willing and able, please join us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First, we have the approval of minutes for our May 14th regular board meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I just wanted to clarify the way the minutes reflected when you were given the explanation when we came back. It was a little bit misleading as to whether or not we were able to have access to the contract. So I just wanted, for people who don't understand, because I wouldn't have known before I sat up here and I received the executive content, that it's not where it traditionally is, where we see the agenda and we click on the attachments. And we all, just to be clear, that we all had voiced that nobody saw it that day, that, leading up to that. So I just wanted to, the minutes made it look like it was there, but we just didn't, maybe we just were negligent in finding it, but that nobody had seen it where it normally is. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
So are you proposing that you want an edit to the minutes?
No, because that is what you said, so the minutes did reflect it, but I just wanted to add context to that.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I'll just piggyback on that and add, because the minutes did reflect what you had said, but I just wanted to clarify that after the meeting had happened, Bill and I had a discussion because I realized that the document also was not available to the public to view. And so I'm appreciative of Bill because he did agree to put the document out 3 days in advance of this meeting, because I had talked to him and said, hey, if we're not going to allow public commentary, then I think we at least need to give the 3 days, because typically it's only 24 hours with a special meeting. So just to add a little bit more context to that, because I've been receiving questions about that. So
Absolutely, and I have as well. And I know Mr. Wade called me, with that question, and he told me that he did speak with our lawyer about that, who said, legally we were within the legal guidelines. We don't need to post it, and we never had posted it before to the public, but in best practice we chose to post it, and after our discussion with legal counsel and Mr. Wade and I, we did decide to post it early so that everyone could see it now. So thank you for that. Okay, is there any more discussion? All right, please call the roll.
Ms. Jesslin.
Yes.
Ms. Marchaza.
Yes.
Ms. Iapolo.
Yes.
Ms. Payne.
yes.
Ms. Cook.
Yes.
Minutes approved 5-0.
Okay, next on our agenda is executive session to discuss the employment of a public official.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Ms. Jesslin.
Yes.
Ms. Marchaza.
Yes.
Ms. Iapolo.
Yes.
Ms. Payne.
Yes.
Ms. Cook.
Yes.
We will now head in executive session at 4:33 p.m.
We have our Board of Education report and recommendations. We have one item of business. It's the recommended approval of the employment contract for Mr. Heath. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Discussion.
I do have some discussion. And I just want to acknowledge there are a lot of people in the room that support Mr. Heath, and I think he has done a wonderful job in a lot of aspects. There are some things that I would like to see worked on, and I'm going to go over some of that as well. And I understand that it might be where I'm the only one disagreeing, but I tell my kids this all the time, that you should stand up for what you believe in, even if it means you're standing alone. So I'm going to go through some of my reasoning, and hopefully people have a better idea of where I'm coming from. So Mr. Heath has some great qualities that we sought after when we hired him. He is visible in the buildings, he is data-driven, and he is excellent with the students. I watched him on opening day as the students came by and high-fived him or hugged him as they entered the building for another school year. These traits are certainly some of what we were searching for when we hired him almost 2 years ago. When reflecting on his contract, a few things came to mind that also needed to be taken into account. My background is in human resources and organizational leadership, and the entire process for the contract has, in my opinion, not been given the correct approach that it should have been. In the human resources field, you would never offer a contract to someone without reviewing or evaluating them first. This includes going over goals and setting new goals prior to the contract being extended. This was not done prior to the contract meeting. Rose and I did push for the board to support a review, which happened after his initial contract meeting. Then the terms were discussed for the contract and never revisited after the review. Until this evening, we did talk a little bit about it. The board president purposely scheduled a meeting when I was on a planned vacation. I left on April 26th, and she had emailed me the day prior notifying me of a meeting on May 2nd. I voiced my concerns about not being in attendance and asked if we could add this meeting to the already scheduled only 45-minute long meeting with City Council on May 7th, since by then I'd be back in town. This also would have saved the district money by consolidating meetings, since we are paid per meeting $125. I was denied and a meeting was scheduled anyway. This process seemed rushed. When Rose and I inquired if we could hold off on this contract for a few months, we were told we'd be at risk of losing our superintendent. I don't believe that is true, as it was shared by 3 board members on social media that they were in support of Mr. Heath's contract, which means, regardless of my vote, he would be assured another contract. With that said, I think it's important to discuss the reasoning for my vote. I want to be transparent with the public, with whom elected me to be their voice. Our board is to collectively be the voice for the community, and I take that responsibility very seriously. A decision to renew a superintendent for 5 more years is one that should be given great due diligence. Rose and I had voiced our concerns about several items and asked for additional time to see how those items would be resolved, since many of them will be addressed within the next 2 to 3 months. We have a meeting already set for July 3rd, where many hot-button items will be discussed and addressed. Many of these relate to Mr. Heath's goals and evaluation. At that meeting, we will be discussing several policies such as controversial issues, public complaints, book challenges, religion in the curriculum, educational outcome goals, relations with special interest groups, curriculum development and parental rights in reference to the library materials and classroom reading materials. It's a long list. We haven't finished the strategic planning process. We haven't had one meeting for the board to ask questions, as everybody included. I'm talking about the board as a whole. To be involved in this process together. I'm not sure how we can offer 5 years to someone when we don't know the direction the school will be headed in yet, and our strategic plan hasn't been finalized, and it hasn't been discussed as a board. We haven't been able to review the survey data to see the community's perception of our schools. We haven't even set new goals with our superintendent for the following year. While Mr. Heath is data-driven and has contributed to the rising math scores last year, we do still struggle in this subject academically. With state test scores coming out within the next month or so, I would like to see those numbers first prior to extending a contract for another 5 years. While I understand that state test scores don't tell the entire story, and personally, I am not a huge fan of state testing, I do think we need to increase some of the failing numbers in math. Mr. Heath has addressed and implemented a few changes that will hopefully help increase those scores. I think it would be in our best interest to see the scores first, prior to voting to renew a contract where one of his goals reflects math achievement. Recently, we heard some concerning discipline data at our last regular meeting. We know bullying has been a problem for our schools, and we have to dig into that data within the next few months. I'd really like to see how that issue is going to be rectified before rendering a vote for another 5 years. However, we were denied that request as a board. While I see strengths in Mr. Heath, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the issues that I see under the leadership. Without having a resolution to many of the items that I just mentioned, I can only go off of former experiences and decisions that have been made under his guidance. I do not support having sexually explicit materials available to minors, nor do I think it's appropriate for trusted adults to provide those materials. I would like to see how this topic will be handled at the July meeting, but since we only have had several book challenges to go off of where these kinds of materials were recommended to stay by our superintendent, I can only assume that sexually explicit materials will remain on our shelves in our schools. This does not set the standard that I would expect for a public school in reference to the safety of children while in our care. I also would like to see the library materials that are balanced in accordance with our policy. I have suggested a few books, as well as others who have offered to donate books to balance out our collection. But those offers have not been fully addressed. They also will be discussed at the July 3rd meeting as well. Right now, I don't believe that we are acting in accordance with our policy 2520.02, and this is another reason why I would have liked to have waited to see the outcome of that meeting and the suggestions that will be put forth by our superintendent. Additionally, prior to extending a contract to someone, the typical process would be to review past evaluations. When I inquired about the previous evaluation from last year, I found out that the board, with the exception of the previous board president, Mr. Tuttle, did not receive the board review from July of 2023. When I requested the review, I noticed an item of concern was missing from the evaluation. This item was discussed in great detail at last year's review and referenced professional board communications and decorum. While this item has been mainly resolved, it unquestionably should have been placed in the file or at least mentioned in the review, as was noted last year during the evaluation. When I brought it up again, 3 board members denied me that right to place it in the superintendent's file. As well as requesting additional time to resolve some of these major objectives and goals that should happen hopefully within the next 2-3 months, Rose and I had explained that we would like to see a 3-year contract instead of a 5-year. The main reason I requested this is because the board could change in another 1.5 years, and we could have 3 different people sitting here in our places. I don't believe it's our job to make decisions for them, especially when the board's main job is to hire, fire, and evaluate the superintendent and CFO. Giving a 5-year contract gives him protection against being held accountable by a new board, since his term would cover the entirety of the new board's term as well for years 2026 to 2030. That takes away a new board's ability to do one of their main jobs and negotiate a contract. Additionally, Craig has only been in the position of superintendent for almost 2 years, and while I acknowledge his great accomplishments, there are still items that need to be discussed and should be resolved within the next 3 months, as I previously mentioned. One of those items is the retired police officer contract that I've been pushing for since March of 2022. I can absolutely thank Craig for helping this process along and entertaining my conversations around hiring retired police officers for our schools and upholding the physical safety of our students with this shared board goal in mind. We should have a contract available. We just saw it last week, preliminary, and it should be up for a vote within the next few months due to his and Mentor Police Department's support and collaboration. I'm very thankful for his work on this and would like to see it completed prior to a vote on a contract. Lastly, Mentor is my home. It's my alma mater, my community. I really want to see our schools thrive, and I think leadership is a big part of that, making that happen. Our enrollment does continue to decline, while homeschooling and private schooling continue to be an option that many are taking advantage of. From the emails we have received and the data collected by Rose, the vast majority of the emails for the contract renewal have come from the political left, or registered Democrats, while those in opposition are mainly from the political right, registered Republicans. This data suggests that we are not appealing to the broad spectrum of voters and community members. This could be a problem come levy time, where we need both parties to support to pass a levy. My opinion, and I respect my other board members who may have a different experience and a different opinion, we need to course correct and make decisions that are more neutral and in alignment with our community. I do appreciate the work and don't take that away from Mr. Heath. He has done a lot of things. He's done a lot of things that I can't give attributes to him for making progress in. But for the reasons I just explained today, I respectfully cannot support a 5-year contract at this time.
Any other discussion?
Yes, sorry. Thank you all for being patient, but as I'm the one sitting here casting a vote, I feel that the need to explain my side. I'll try to be loud. We have a microphone. We sit here as state officers chosen by citizens to represent them and make decisions on their behalf. As board members, one of our chief duties is to hire, evaluate, or fire a superintendent. This task should not be taken lightly, rushed, or mishandled. I echo everything Mrs. Payne has said, especially all of the contributions that Mr. Heath has made in his short time in this position. I have received emails in support of renewing his 5-year contract with common sentiments like he's committed to students, he's professional, visible, caring, dedicated, and compassionate. I would agree with all of those descriptions, but it's not enough. Approving a 5-year contract requires more than qualitative data. It requires quantitative data and a clear plan of action to tackle major issues that still need to be addressed, like test scores, discipline, vaping, bathroom access and safety, class sizes, just to name a few. Some measures have been taken, but it's just not enough. 3 board members knew all along they only needed 3 votes to approve his contract. It was my goal and Mrs. Payne's goal to work toward making that vote unanimous. Mr. Heath deserves that opportunity. Throughout this process, we made some very reasonable requests for us to get there. Those requests were tossed aside. Mrs. Payne and I were disrespected and disregarded at every turn in this process. It seems they have forgotten that we represent a large portion of the community. This is how the board members wanted this to go. Discuss terms, violating policy and not going in the order it should have gone, send it to our attorney, vote in May. That was it. They stated that there were 3 executive sessions to discuss this contract, and that is misleading. The first one was to discuss terms. The second was a forced meeting that I had, as Mrs. Payne mentioned, she wasn't afforded the opportunity to be present, to beg, all but beg for his review first, which we needed. The third one was to do his actual review. It was not a meeting to discuss his contract. Mrs. Payne and I had to make numerous attempts to slow down the process so we could do it right and get to a 5-0 vote, and they wouldn't help us get there. We even tried it up until minutes ago. So to voters, I ask you this. Would you have me vote to approve a 5-year contract and a raise without the following? Without a proper quantitative evaluation being done with measurable data, without having access to his previous evaluations. After all, he's new at this position and I'm new at this position. Without new goals that explain the direction he wants to take the district, without measurable data indicating that current goals were all successfully reached, without the completion of the 5-year strategic plan that he is working on, that is costing taxpayers a significant amount of money, without seeing the results of the parent, staff, and community surveys, without assurance that controversial items that concern a large portion of the voters will be addressed, voters that I represent. Currently, there are more items of concern that I'm still waiting for a response to. And finally, without appropriate measures being taken to assure that we are in a position to pass a new levy. In my research and preparation for this renewal, I could not find a single person in the public or private sector that would approve any contract, much less discuss terms without first conducting a quantitative and qualitative performance review. This board attempted to approve without performing any review. They are still willing to approve without measurable data and without any new goals. Waiting until July or August would have allowed for Mr. Heath to check some of those boxes for me, and I would have been more confident in supporting a renewal for 3 years, but not for 5. In my research, I found that those superintendents with 5-year contracts have far more experience and proven success in that role. That's just not the case here. And this is his first superintendent position. I need more time to see where he wants to take the district. I need time to see Mr. Heath take more initiative to enforce policy and create balance when it comes to community needs. Academic improvement is one of his goals, but we need more time to see them come to fruition. I'm hopeful that he wants to take us in the direction that the majority of voters want us to go, but I just don't have enough evidence of that yet. Rewards follow progress, not the other way around. We are the chief advisors to the superintendent on community attitudes. Our concerns that we bring forward by our constituents must be taken seriously if we wish to pass a levy. Our students and staff depend on it. Mr. Heath wants to remain here until his retirement. I would like to see that as well. However, it is not our job to bridge his retirement. We need to see results first. It is unprofessional and poor practice to approve this contract when vital data is still lacking. It is for this reason that I cannot support it. I have heard 3 of my fellow board members state that this whole process is an embarrassment for our district. I quite agree. However, the embarrassment falls on 3 board members who chose to rush this contract through without respecting policy, the professional order of operations, and the voice of the community. We could have given Mr. Heath the unanimous vote he wanted, but you chose to not to work with us. Now we're left with a 3-2 vote, which does not bode well for a professional record or passing a levy. Once again, I implore the majority members of this board to start working with us.
Any more discussion? Good. Yes, over these past 2 years, since we met Mr. Heath about exactly 2 years ago, I've been very satisfied with his work ethic, his integrity, his accomplishments. I look at the abundant evidence that was presented to us and has been available to us over these many months, and it is clear to me that the community applauds and appreciates his leadership, would like to see him continue and bring all of those great ideas that he's implemented onto that next level. I am amazed that we're here at this kind of split when we would not have worked so hard with 3 full sessions, including an evaluation, if it wasn't our goal to cooperate and compromise with all of our board members' concerns, and they just keep evolving, is my perception. So I am completely comfortable and look forward to bringing Mr. Heath in for 5 years at the end of this contract.
Sure. So I first met Mr. Heath long before I was a board member. In fact, the first time I met him was when he chose to sit down with various community members when he first started to hear our concerns. He sat with us, he listened to us, he answered questions, and tried to gain insight from a community with a broad range of perspectives. It would be the first of several community meetings he would undertake during his tenure, and it would set the tone for his leadership of this district to date. In my short time as a board member, I've watched Mr. Heath face one challenge after the next, often performing exceptionally well and learning where there were opportunities. He is self-reflective, attentive, willing to learn and adapt, and as evidenced by the numerous emails we received from parents and community members over the last 2 weeks, he genuinely cares about every single student in our district. I have seen that with my own eyes. Since he joined Mentor Schools, Mr. Heath has proved himself to be a high-performing leader and well-liked among faculty, staff, students, and families. He has consistently met expectations with regard to the goals the board has set for him, including working with our staff to make the tough decisions needed to reduce our expenses after the narrow failure of one of our levies, launching our strategic planning process with extensive levels of community engagement, collaborating with Dr. Joe Glavin and community partners to take our career tech education program to new heights, reducing our busing delays with Heather Wisen in the Department of Transportation by implementing new routing software and helping to solve the bus driver shortage, and rolling out new math and reading curricula to help improve our testing scores, and finally exploring new solutions to right-size our classrooms. And there's more. Our district has been ranked in the top 20% of public school districts in the state. Mr. Heath consistently shows up for our students, our families, and our community. His leadership puts Mentor Schools on the path to even more success, and today I am happy to vote in favor of renewing his 5-year contract.
I'm also happy to support a 5-year contract for Mr. Heath. I am very impressed with the work that he has done. He has made significant improvements in school safety, which is a very large issue for me. From the very beginning, I have talked school safety, and the first week that he was on the job, he met with me and City Council, Chief Gunch, and many of these people to talk about school safety, and he has hit the ground running with it. Our safety has improved with an increase of SROs. We're now looking at having retired officers. We're adding SSOs. He is dedicated to it. There's been a complete audit done. He has had to work without funding of a permanent improvement levy, yet he's still prioritized student safety and also conquering things like the busing issue, trying to work with class sizes. In the midst of it, he has provided a balanced, high-quality education by adding several courses with our CTE, CCP curriculum. He is monitoring the implementation of the Science of Reading program. Our scores have gone up for objective data. The current state test scores that we have in 11 of the 13 areas have increased over the last 2 years. We have had a 4.5 out of 5-star rating in the district. We've had 2 schools with a 5-star rating. His leadership has been excellent. He has maximized district resources by cutting costs, prioritizing the classroom instruction. He's increased community partnerships with really many ways. He has a strong community presence. He's gone out and spoke with people. He's always present at events. He's in the classroom. He's actively engaged with students. He has engaged a business advisory committee, and he's also been working with the food banks. He has just been an excellent leader that I want to retain for 5 years. I do not want to risk losing him because it would be such a loss to our district, to our students, and to our staff. Mr. Heath belongs here. He has done an excellent job, and I would also like to state that we followed all legal procedures and our policy during this process. While we always have room for improvement, and there'll always be continued data that we could gather to make decisions because it's a school district and there's constantly new information coming through. It's ongoing work, and we can't hold a contract hostage to political agendas. If you do this, I'll do this. It is, in my opinion, Russian roulette. This is a person who we should be wanting him to stay here. And this is his livelihood. Offering him the security of a 5-year contract to get the work done and to implement this strategic plan that he has been working on and engaging the whole community in is exactly what we want to see happen. I'm in strong support of Mr. Heath's 5-year contract.
You ready to vote?
Please call the roll.
Ms. Jessling,
Yes.
Ms. Marchaza,
Yes.
Ms. Iapolo,
No.
Ms. Payne,
No.
Ms. Cook.
Yes.
Motion carries 3-2.
I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Please call the roll.
So, you said.
Yes, that was Lisa.
Ms. Payne,
Yes.
Ms. Marchaza.
Yes.
Ms. Iapolo,
Yes.
Ms. Jessling,
Yes.
Ms. Cook.
Yes.
Meeting is adjourned at 7:12 p.m.